Hey guys, part two. Sorry I had to do a part two. Let me try to make this quick. Eventually Biff comes in. Marty just got done ordering something without any sugar, and then he discovers the dude that was sitting next to him was his past dad, because Biff kind of past Biff repeats stuff that future Biff has repeated, and he calls Marty Butthead, and then Marty follows his dad, and then sees him being a peeping Tom. He pushes his dad out of the way because the car was about to hit him, but then it hits Marty instead. And then Marty wakes up and says, "I just had a dream about traveling back in time." And then she goes, "Well, you're safe now, back in good old 1955." And then he sees his past mother, thinking her name's Calvin Klein, and he goes, "No, people call me Marty." And then eventually it was dinner time. They sit down, and then um, apparently he sees his past uncle, which is a baby. He's in his crib, and then they what else? Marty sees something on TV, and then he says, "This is a classic. I've seen it before." And then one of the kids is like, "What do you mean you've seen it? It's brand new." And he goes, "Yeah, I mean I've seen it on a rerun." And he goes, "What's a rerun?" He sighs and says, "You'll find out." And then he asks how to get to this place, and then he goes, "No, past there, that's John F. Kennedy Drive." And they don't even know who John F. Kennedy is, and then he eventually leaves, and then he goes, "See you all later, much later." And then, and then Lorraine's father, which is his past mother, that's the name of his mother, and then his father says, "He's an idiot. If you have a kid like that, Lorraine, I'm gonna use you." Or whatever it is. But anyway, he eventually finds Dr. Emmett Brown, asks him to get him back to 1985. They make a plan to get him back to 1985, and then Marty said he ran into his parents. The next day they go to the school. He tries to introduce his past parents to each other, but it doesn't work, and then Marty explains that apparently his mother has the hots for Marty, not his dad. But then they make a plan to like get them together, like to go try to get them to go to the enchantment and to the sea dance. And then Marty tries to get George McFly to talk to Lorraine and all. And then eventually Marty and Biff almost get into a fight. Strickland catches them, and then Biff says, "Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break. So why don't you just get make like a tree and get out of here?" And then apparently um, then apparently Marty pretends to be Darth Vader with Van Halen music, convincing um, George to ask Lorraine out. He tries to do it at the Sugar Bowl or whatever that place was, and then Biff comes telling him he thought he told them to never come in there, and he goes, "Well, it's gonna cost you." And then and he goes, "How much do you want, Biff?" And then Marty trips him, and then he goes, "All right, punk, you're asking for it." "Oh, hey, Biff, what's that?" And he goes, "Huh?" Marty punches him, makes a run for it, skateboards down the road. He takes his kid's skateboard. They chase him, and then they're about to ram him, and then he runs through the car and then manages to escape them, and then Biff and his buddies crash into a manure cart or a manure truck, and then eventually Marty and Marty and what was his name? Dr. Emmett Brown make a plan to like get Marty back to the future, and then because that's why it's called Back to the Future, and then Lorraine asks Marty to the dance. Marty and George make a plan because Marty pretends to like take like advantage of her or something, and then George makes a plan, and then Marty tells what Dr. Emmett says. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. They eventually go to the dance, but stuff happens, goes down, Biff appears, but luckily George manages to punch Biff, knock him out, and then the 1950s band at the dance save Marty from Biff's buddies, but one of the lead singer accidentally cuts himself. George and Lorraine fall in love, and then Marty plays for the band, and then and then some other weird dude pushes George away from Lorraine, and then George gets pushes him away, and then they kiss, and then eventually his brother, Marty's siblings appear in the picture. Then Marty plays Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry, and then turns out the lead singer was Chuck Berry's cousin, but then and then Marty like kicks does like a wild wacky guitar, and then he goes, I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are gonna enjoy it. And then eventually he says his goodbyes to his past parents. He gets in the DeLorean, and then eventually they had to do some tactics to get Marty back to the future, and then they managed to get him back. But even though Marty tried to like send him a letter about warning um, Doc about the terrorists, and once he gets there, he sees himself go back to the past, and then he sees Dr. Emmett Brown on the ground, but then he wakes up because he had a bulletproof vest, and then he goes, I just thought, what the hell? Anyway, the next day, Marty wakes up, he sees his brother and sister are still there, his parents are a little bit look different, and Biff is a little clumsy, which is funny. And then eventually, um, Jennifer comes. She goes, Marty, you're acting like you haven't seen me in like weeks. And then they kiss each other, and then Dr. Emmett Brown appears and warns them about their future, about their kids or something. And he goes, what? Do we become like assholes or something? And he goes, no, like you guys become good. It's just your kids. And then they take off. The film ends with them taking off in the DeLorean. So that movie, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it an 11 because I'm a huge fan of all those movies, because I highly recommend Back to the Future for anybody who's a fan of science fiction and time traveling movies, or 1980s movies, or really old movies that you really wish you could have experienced in the movie theater. Well, anyway, that's all I got for you guys, and it's like almost the 35th anniversary. This year marks the 35th anniversary of it, so I might as well title it 35th anniversary, because this year marks its, so great Scott, it's its 35th anniversary. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe for more of these reviews, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one later.